Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Amidon, the chair of the Business Media Group at Burns Levinson. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for what I really believe will be an interesting discussion on accessibility to virtual meetings and events. A bit about us before we get started. Burns Business Media Group provides lifecycle legal services for innovative B2B and B2C companies in print and digital publishing, trade shows and events, and fully integrated business media services, helping our clients work to connect buyers and sellers in diverse and creative ways. Historically, organizers of in-person meetings and events recognized not only the need, but the good business sense of ensuring that their meeting or event was accessible to the disabled. As recently as 2018, the CDC reported that about 1 in 4 of American adults identified as disabled. Many expect that number to rise as life expectancies continue to rise and additional disabilities are identified. Moreover, many people who don't identify as disabled have accessibility concerns. For example, those who prefer to participate in a meeting or event silently using closed captioning, or language learners who desire plain language for ease in following a presentation. Early 2020 saw the COVID-19 virus arrive in the US. One consequence was the virtual shutdown of face-to-face meetings and events. This required many organizers to pivot quickly to a remote format. Much of the focus early on was on the technology requirements so that the event would still work. This ranged from show platform and website architecture to promotions, to design of exhibitor spaces, to creating meaningful content, including workshops, events, and seminars. As this shift evolved, organizers were quick to identify a number of operational changes that needed to be made in order for a successful customer experience. One issue that quickly jumped out was addressing accessibility and inclusion in a remote format. Show directors and meeting organizers are well-versed in how to set up their in-person meetings and events to meet accessibility and participation challenges. Today, following the pivot to remote, maximizing accessibility and participation opportunities remains a critical goal for organizers. But actually achieving this goal requires a clear understanding of what this goal means in a remote environment. As a result, organizers need a very different approach. Our goal today is to outline for you the regulatory framework around accessibility to remote meetings and events, and to offer some practical solutions that you, meetings and events organizers, can implement to help your organization not only meet its legal requirements, but establish your remote meeting or event as a leader in your market in both accessibility and inclusiveness. Joining me for this discussion today are two gentlemen who spend a lot of time thinking about this issue. Darren Harpaz is a principal at Zenith Group, an accessibility-focused software development company. Darren and his team bring deep expertise in ADA website accessibility and compliance by helping companies identify, remedy, and support their accessible digital platforms. As a mission-driven organization, Zenith Group believes that technology should be inclusive and accessible for people of all abilities. So when I moderate panels like this one, I try to find something personal about each of my panelists that can help all of you better know them apart from just the information they're presenting. So one thing I think you'd appreciate to know about Darren is that he's an avid mountain biker and basically adrenaline junkie. He attacks the steepest and most technical terrain our beautiful backcountry has to offer. Last year, in 2020, he mountain biked a total of 2,500 miles with 350 hours in the saddle and climbed a total of 500,000 vertical feet. Not resting on his laurels, either literally or figuratively, Darren's goal this year is to climb 600,000 feet. Our other panelist is Shep Davidson. Shep is my law partner at Burns, where he concentrates in the areas of complex business torts, contract claims, non-compete litigation, and disputes involving closely held businesses. He has extensive experience advising clients on claims related to ADA and state law accessibility compliance in both the brick and mortar and digital environments. One thing I think you'd appreciate to know about Shep is that while attending Swarthmore College in the mid-'80s, he was a member of Swarthmore's NCAA Division III National Championship tennis team. He was a 5-time NCAA Division III All-American in both singles and doubles. In 1985, he was a Division III National Singles finalist and National Doubles champion. In 1986, Shep was named the Division III National Senior Player of the Year. And if that's not enough, he's a member of the Swarthmore College Athletics Hall of Fame. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, we've disabled the chat feature, but we are taking questions during the webinar. Please use the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your screen. We've set aside some time, I hope, at the end to answer as many questions as we can. We'll try to answer them by topic, so if we don't mention your specific question, please rest assured that we'll try to get it answered. And if we can't get to all the questions before our time is up, we will get back to you after the webinar. Secondly, this webinar is being presented live, but there will be a recorded version posted shortly after we end today. We will send all the attendees a link to that recorded webinar, and please feel free to share it with others who couldn't make today's live airing. Finally, since today's topic is web accessibility, let me quickly tell everyone that captions are available during this live webinar and can be turned on by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. Captioning will also be available for the recorded version of this webinar, which will be made available after today's live broadcast. Now I'd like to turn things over to Shep, who will run through some of the legal and regulatory considerations that impact remote platforms. Shep, take it away.
All right, thanks, David. First, David, let me know. I just tried to screen share. Did I do it? You're muted, so I can't do it. Okay, I got the thumbs up from David. Okay, thanks. So first, thank you all for joining today. And I want you to know this isn't just the obligatory, Zoom fake suit situation here. So I've got the pants on, and even if you can see it, I pulled out the wingtips, which I haven't worn since March for this. So that's how special an event this is to me. So let's first pick your mode of time travel. You can either go with Sherman and Mr. Peabody in the Wayback Machine. You can go with Doc and Marty in the DeLorean, but we're going to go back to 1999. And that's a picture of George H.W. Bush, 1990. George H.W. Bush actually signed the Americans with Disabilities Act. A lot of people don't realize that. So what the ADA does is it prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. And one of the key things with the law originally was for people that were in wheelchairs, for instance. People couldn't get into buildings. When they got into buildings, they couldn't get up the stairs. So after the ADA, people had to install ramps, had to install elevators. Now, the Americans with Disability Act doesn't apply everywhere. So your house doesn't have to be compliant with the requirements of the ADA. The ADA only applies to someone who owns, leases, or operates a place of public accommodation. Okay, so a bank, a hotel lobby, a movie theater, any place where the public can go where you wouldn't be trespassing in essence. Those are places of public accommodation, and they have to comply with requirements of the ADA that you don't discriminate against people with disabilities. Now, going back to the late 1990s, early 2000s, people started bringing some lawsuits saying that companies' websites didn't comply with the ADA because people that were blind couldn't use them the same way sighted people could. For those of you that don't know, people that are blind or visually impaired often have what's called screen reader technology on their computer. And really all that it is it's software so that when your mouse rolls across text, the computer will say it out loud. It turns the text into audio. And that's great for text. But if you look at this picture that's up on the screen, for instance, if you have screen reader technology, your mouse rolls across this, it just rolls right across it. It doesn't see text, so it doesn't know what to do. What you have to do is embed some sort of code into the website so that when the mouse rolls across this picture, it'll say, here's a picture of a man signing a document flanked by 4 other people or whatever else you want to say. I can't tell you how that happens. Darren may be able to when he talks later on. But that was the basis for these lawsuits. And the initial defense that companies brought to this lawsuit, going back to what I said before, they said, well, look, the ADA only applies to places of public accommodation. My website isn't a place, so how could it be a place of public accommodation? And the courts looked at this, and there were sort of 2 lines of cases that developed. One in the Ninth Circuit, which is California out on the West Coast, and one in the First Circuit, which is mostly, which is the East Coast, including Boston. And the first big case was in 2006. And it was in the Northern District of California, and it was the National Federation of the Blind versus Target. Okay, so Target got sued. National Federation of the Blind said, hey, your website isn't compliant with the ADA because there are all sorts of things that happen when I roll my mouse across it, and I'm not getting the same experience that a sighted person is getting, so it's discriminating against me. Target's defense, hey, our website isn't a place, so it can't be a place of public accommodation. And so the Ninth Circuit looked at this, and they came up with a decision that said, in essence, look, if you're a place like Target, you have a brick and mortar store, and you also have a website that functions to sell the products in your store, we're going to say that that website is a place of public accommodation. You're going to have to comply with the ADA. Now, if you're a place like eBay, you're safe because you can't go to eBay and buy anything. So according to the Ninth Circuit, if you're eBay, you're not a place of public accommodation, don't have to comply with the ADA. If you're a Target or a Walmart or something like that, you do. Now, in 2012, the second sort of big case came about, and this was in the First Circuit, and this one was against Netflix. So this was the National Association of the Deaf against Netflix. The essence of the complaint was that not all your shows are captioned properly, so as a deaf person, I'm being discriminated against. Now, Netflix defense was, hey, look at that case out on the West Coast in the Ninth Circuit against Target. They said, if you're like eBay, you don't have to comply because you don't have any brick and mortar establishment. Netflix said, hey, that's us. You can't come to Netflix and rent a video, okay? We're just out in the cybersphere somewhere. And the First Circuit analyzed the situation differently than the Ninth Circuit. What they did was they went back to the actual Americans with Disability Act and looked at the criteria that was written into the act as to how you should determine whether or not a place is a place of public accommodation. And 3 of the indicia indicating that something is a place of public accommodation is if you're a place of exhibition and entertainment, if you're a place where sales are made, or if you're a rental establishment. So the First Circuit judges looked at that, and they looked at Netflix, and they said, check, check, check. You're a place of public accommodation. So the rule in the First Circuit is, in essence, any kind of website that's a commercial website is going to be a place of public accommodation. And I think pretty much everybody knows these days, if you're any sort of retailer of any sort of size, even if you're based in California, you're selling stuff here. So even if you're eBay, you better be complying with this, stricter requirement here about whether or not you're a place of public accommodation. Now, as this problem or issue began to get a little bit of steam, the Department of Justice said, hey, we should probably look at this. We're going to analyze this situation. We're going to come up with some regulations about web accessibility and what you need to do. And, a few months went by, a year went by, 2 years went by. Finally, in 2017, they basically just said, we're just kidding. We're not really going to come up with any regulations. You guys are on your own. So what happened and what do people do with this? Well, enter the World Wide Web Consortium and its WCAG standards. Okay. So what's the World Wide Web Consortium? Well, they describe themselves as an international community where member organizations, the full-time staff, and the public work together to develop web standards. And the standards they developed are in this acronym WCAG. All right. And we're now up to WCAG 2.1 because they've revised their standards over the years. And within WCAG 2.1, there are 3 levels of accessibility that they have. There's a level A, a level AA, and a level AAA. And what the courts have done, since there was no standard out there, and honestly, I can't tell you how I first got started, but they look at WCAG 2.1 level AA as the legal standard that you must meet in order to have a website compliant with the ADA. Now, there's a little bit of good news about lawsuits under the ADA, which is the plaintiffs can't get awarded any damages. All right. If somebody brings a lawsuit saying your website doesn't comply, they can get what's called injunctive relief, meaning an order of the court saying that you have to bring your website up to WCAG 2.1 level AA, but they're not going to get awarded any damages. Okay, so that's the good news. It's not a lot of good news, but that's all there is, because there's some bad news as well. The bad news is that if you show somebody violates the ADA, you're entitled to recover your reasonable legal fees. And as you might imagine, these can add up really quickly. There was a case a couple of years ago against Winn-Dixie Supermarkets, which is a big chain. To me, it's like the Stop and Shop of Florida. And it's the only case I know of in this area that actually went to a trial. And after the trial, the judge found that Winn-Dixie was not up to snuff with their website, ordered Winn-Dixie to bring their website up to WCAG, at that time 2.0, level AA, and awarded $100,000 in damages to the plaintiff. And frankly, that's a really low number if you know anything about legal fees and the cost of going to trial. But that's the bad news. They can get their legal fees. Now, there's also some really bad news. In addition to the ADA, there are some states, New York and California most prominently, that have their own statutes that track the ADA, that provide state law relief and have statutory damages as part of those. California's act is called the Unruh Act, and that allows for up to $4,000 per violation of that statute. Now, I talked to what I call an ADA website friend of mine, because I have such friends in California who does what I do out there. And I asked him, because I had a client that was sued out in California under the Unruh Act. And I said, hey, when it says up to $4,000 per violation, does that mean per website, or does that mean every single little glitch within the website? And he said, yeah, the courts haven't decided that one yet. And that was not good to hear. I didn't like, I don't like the odds of that one. My guess would be it's going to turn out to be every single little glitch. So my client settled that case mucho pronto. So that's some of the bad news with the websites. Now, the proliferation of these lawsuits is incredible. You can see historically, there wasn't much going on till 2017, 2018, and then it really accelerated tremendously. I don't have the numbers on 2020 yet, but I see them all the time. I don't have any reason to think that they're slowing down at all. The other thing that's important to understand is you don't just have to be a target for this if you're a Target, no pun intended, or Netflix or Walmart. All right. This is a screenshot of something, a piece of something I get every day, every morning, and I'm sure this will be exciting to everybody. I get all the new lawsuits that are filed in the Federal District Court for the District of Massachusetts. And this is a screenshot of one section of that report that I get. And you'll see on the left side, it's the same plaintiff, Siam Sarwar, in all these lawsuits, same description of the case, okay? Defendant's website failed to identify or follow for booking of accessible rooms under the ADA, all right? And I can tell you it's the same lawyer that's filing all these lawsuits. But look at the defendants in this lawsuit: RF Daily Realty, Red Jacket Beach Limited Partnership, the Wagon Wheel Motel. This is not Four Seasons that are getting sued. They're going after these bed and breakfast mom and pop places right now because these lawyers get the same bang for their buck on this. Now, I'm sure there are some plaintiffs and some lawyers that are doing this because they really believe in the unfairness that people aren't complying with the websites, and that's all well and good. I haven't met any of those lawyers or any of those plaintiffs yet. I've only met the opportunists that are looking to make a buck on this thing. So again, it's not just for these big box retailers in terms of being concerned about this issue. The issue is also not going away. There was a big case against Domino's Pizzas out in California last year. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the Ninth Circuit and the First Circuit have different rules about what it takes to be a place of public accommodation. The Supreme Court of the United States, the ultimate authority, has never addressed the issue. So if the Supreme Court were to say, you know what, we agree with all those arguments that were made back in 1995, 1998, that a website isn't a place, so it can't be a place of accommodation. If the Supreme Court said that, all of this would go away with respect to websites. So Domino's did what's calling, they applied for certiorari to get their case heard by the Supreme Court of the United States. Certiorari is basically discretionary. The Supreme Court decided they're not going to take the case. So they didn't. So Domino's was left with the law of the Ninth Circuit, and they couldn't challenge that. I don't have any reason to think that the Supreme Court's going to take up one of these cases. I think it's really unlikely that they will. If they do, I think they'll probably come up with some either hybrid rule or probably the First Circuit rule. So I don't think it's going away. The only other way this really could go away would be if Congress would pass some sort of legislation clearly stating that websites are not places of public accommodation. They've got plenty of other things to deal with these days. I don't think they're going to take up the issue either. So the issue isn't going away. Interestingly, sort of the next evolution of these lawsuits has been started about a year ago, a little over a year now. A bunch of the same sort of plaintiffs' lawyers and plaintiffs themselves sued a number, it was about 500 all on one day, big box retailers claiming that their gift cards, their physical gift cards, discriminated against blind people because they didn't have Braille on the gift cards. Now, at least one, if not more, of those cases already has been dismissed. I don't think they're going to get any traction. They have a really high hurdle to clear, but they might. It only takes one judge, and if not, there may be some other morphing of this issue. So again, it's not going away. So what can you do if you have one of these consumer-facing websites? Well, there's a few things. I mean, you want to make sure, before anybody files a lawsuit against you, that you comply with WCAG 2.1 AA. Now, if you have a fairly static website, meaning it doesn't change very often, once you get it established, you should be good for quite some time because the law really isn't changing very much as to what you may or may not have to do. If you have a more dynamic website, you really need to periodically check your website to make sure it complies. I have one client that's a very big company and is constantly absorbing other businesses and their websites. They literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year prophylactically to make sure that all these websites they're absorbing and all the changes in their websites comply with WCAG 2.1 AA. If you have somebody else that basically is responsible for maintaining your website, for creating it, get guarantees in your agreements with them, get indemnities from them that the website will comply with WCAG, and if it doesn't, that they'll indemnify you for any litigation. Anybody that's really in the web industry these days should know about this. If they're not aware of it, you probably want to use somebody else, and they should be able to work around this for you. And again, if they're not, you probably want to look at somebody else. You don't want to be on the hook for this, because odds are sooner or later you're going to have to deal with it. And the last thing that you can do is, if you get sued or if you get a demand letter, there are still some lawyers in this area, I'm not sure why, but they'll send out a demand letter saying, we're going to sue you, your website doesn't comply. Address it right away. Because again, unless you're dealing with one of these states like New York or California, your only concern after getting the website up to speed is avoiding the legal fees. So as soon as you can get your website up to speed, you've got to do it. And even if you could settle that first lawsuit really fast, it doesn't protect you. They can't give you a release from the next person, the next person, the next person. And it could even be the same lawyer with a different plaintiff who could bring that lawsuit. So it's really important that you address that, the issue right away, if you get a demand letter or if you get sued. And my last slide is just a fabulous picture of me looking very professional and important. You've got my contact information there. So if there are questions, when we all get done, we're happy to answer them. If not, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat with you about this. Thanks a lot, and I will try to stop sharing.
All right, thanks a lot, Shep. That was great. As I mentioned up front, and as Shep just alluded to, if there are any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to them at the end, time permitting. I'd now like to turn things over to Darren, who will talk in a bit more detail about the disability market and population and provide some guidance for remote platform organizers as they attempt to make their meetings and events accessibility compliant. Darren, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Thanks, Shep. Appreciate that. Very informative. And first off, a big thanks to Burns Levinson for arranging our event today. And a quick shout out to Cielo 24, our partners helping us provide live closed captioning for this event. Thank you very much. Okay, glad to be here. Darren Harpaz with Zenith Group. We are an end-to-end accessibility solutions provider, focusing on manually auditing websites and mobile apps, providing full code remediation and ongoing compliance to make sure organizations maintain their digital compliance for their applications. So to start off our conversation, I think it's good to just take a step back and look at some of the stats around our industry. As David spoke about, we do have 1 in 4 US adults with a disability, around 61 million US adults. We'll talk more about this in a moment, but in terms of our aging demographic, we know that 40% of adults over the age of 65 have 1 or more disabilities. We see about 1 billion people worldwide, 15% of our global population with a disability. So the reason this is important is because we start to look at kind of adults with functional disability types. And I think this graph is really timely and informative for the distinction between events, traditional face-to-face events, and now, of course, our virtual events. In a traditional face-to-face event arena scenario, you're dealing with this first bucket, the mobility bucket of 13.7%. Of course, you're making a lot of accommodations for the physical space. So moving to essentially the virtual platform, if we look at the combined total of the cognition, hearing, and vision categories, we're somewhere north of 21, probably close to 22%. So just by default of moving into a digital environment, you have to make a lot more accommodations to cater for WCAG compliance, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, to your functional disability types just by default. So I think that, illuminates that quite nicely. We spoke about the aging demographic. We know people are getting older. We know they're using technology more and more actively. The stat is that the number of people worldwide aged 80 and over will quadruple to 400 million by 2050. We also see for the first time in history, there'll be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 14. And we know that seniors are consuming social media and social networking sites and internet at a much higher rate, a markedly increased rate. So this does tend to play into the disability conversation. The distinction is it's important to remember that not all disabilities are visible. So as the population starts to age, it feeds very much into the demographic equation, as we would expect to see as the population increases in age. So does the prevalence of disability, and the ratio between severe and disability is proportionate as the demographic is aging. Of course, we'd see here the 65 range is where you kind of see that jump up in percentage of disability by prevalence, or disability prevalence by age. As Shep has spoken about, we had this kind of distinction around the 2015 era. In the 2017, we were very hopeful, and we do expect that the Biden administration will resume a much more aggressive approach around enforcement with the DOJ. And we certainly see every indication that is going to occur. Shep also spoke around the Unruh Civil Rights Act. I'm here in California, so this is a very, sort of kind of a big deal for us. I have some clients that are in the unfortunate position of having to tally up their violation penalties right now based on this piece of legislation. So it is very real, and it can add up very quickly. And we're not going to spend any more time on this, but of course, the courts are divided, as Chip spoke about, and we are seeing that the platforms, the virtual platforms, are very much not having to prove a nexus to physical location to be held to the structure or the concepts of the WCAG conformance levels. So enter COVID-19. 2020 was a crazy year. We can look at this graph and kind of see around about March, April, where COVID started to take a hit. And then we see the increase in numbers. We had a 50% increase in lawsuits above the pre-pandemic rates of filing towards the end of the year. And another interesting statistic is that over 20% of lawsuits last year were filed against a company that had already been sued at least once in the past 2 years. I think a recent stat I saw was that 25% of retailers had been sued at least once, at least more than once over the last 2 years as well. In-house, just a fun fact, we use ALI as a quick, a numeron for accessibility. 11 is my favorite number, but I just thought I'd throw this slide up for just a quick representation of ALI. Sometimes we say ALI, sometimes we say A11Y or A11Y. I like to write it as ALI, but I like to pronounce it as accessibility. So if you guys ever see that, you know where that came from. So getting into kind of the more technical conversation on WCAG 2.0, 2.1. 2.0 AA has 38 success criteria. If anybody is interested in those, I'm happy to share them. But enter 2.1 as the kind of updated version of the web content accessibility guidelines. And that really just introduced 12 new success criteria. There's a total of 50 criteria for AA. But 2.1 really does apply to apps and websites on tablets and mobile. It addresses more of the usability for those with motor skill impairments and more granularity around accessibility for those with low vision. So, this kind of conversation becomes important, or distinction becomes important if you are looking at your digital platforms, you're looking at your audience, your demographic, you're looking at, the metrics of your platform, browser versions, operating systems, tablets and phones, to see what your audience or how your audience is consuming your platforms. And that's a good way to kind of make a distinction into which level you're going to drive towards for compliance. But here's where it gets interesting. I broke out the WCAG criteria for kind of more of a virtual meeting environment. And what's interesting is that they all fall under the WCAG 2.0 success conformance levels. So for today, for example, we're doing live captioning, which would conform to 2.0 AA. If you get into sign language and extended audio descriptions, that kind of gets to the 2.0 AAA level. But there are no 2.1 criteria for audio and video. They all live in the 2.0 category. So I thought that was kind of interesting to highlight. So the question becomes, you have a platform, where do we start? What are the kind of, what are the main items we really need to be focusing on? We've spoken about screen reader and keyboard during this kind of presentation, but those are hypercritical assistive technologies. Alt tags for images, color contrast ratios, text zoom or screen magnifier, the ability to zoom your screen to 200% without the content breaking, and then of course closed captioning. These are by no means exhaustive. This is very high level, but these are certainly some of the more critical items to address. So I put together a quick checklist for kind of virtual meetings. It really is applicable to any digital platform, but more so specifically for the purpose of our presentation today. Definitely select an ADA compliant platform. Understand its accessibility features, and if they don't have them, you need to be making sure that your accessibility roadmap is in place and you're working towards implementing these features rapidly. They should be in place when you're rolling out. One way to do that, of course, is to poll your attendees on the front of your events. I can't stress this enough. It's hyper important. This is going to give you direct feedback to the accommodations that are required for your event. And they also fit very nicely into being able to feed your roadmap for accessibility improvements and feature sets across platforms' capabilities. In terms of implementing the accessibility accommodations, we've spoken about most of these, but I want to just kind of float down to the closed captioning line. Closed captioning versus automatic speech recognition. I mean, the technology around ASR is quite incredible, and it's improved and it's getting better all the time. But at best, we probably are looking at 70, maybe 80% accuracy. You've seen these on YouTube channels. Zoom actually has a feature as well where it will, listen to your speech and try to recognize what you're saying with obvious errors. Closed captioning is obviously the standard. The benefit being you can have your transcripts available from the meetings provided afterwards, which meets your criteria as well. Also specific to the meeting, to virtual meetings, is sign language. If you determine you need to have sign language available, one important distinction is your demographic and their location. If you are traditionally a regional or local event, and everybody's here on US soil, ASL is just fine. What you might not know is that sign language is similar to dialects of different international languages. So there's different flavors in different countries. If you have a much broader or international global attendee demographic, just opt for the IS as a standard to kind of provide access to sign language for all your attendees. And then very important as well on the back end of your events, reach out to your participants that require accommodations, talk to your community, get their feedback. And between polling your attendees and getting feedback from your community, your disability community, you have real actionable items to feed your accessibility roadmap and make sure your platform continues to remain compliant and perform to accessibility best practices. Another quick checklist I've put together for you guys. I won't spend too much time on this. Shep did talk about most of this as well, but this is kind of the life cycle, the workflow for us. Council will be engaged. They'll reach out to us for as an accessibility expert. Typically, we set up a privileged relationship where the attorney work product is in place. You can reach out to Shep if you want to talk more about that, but it's essentially around how the information may not be discovered or disclosed and becomes protected. And then we'll get to work on helping put this rebuttal report together. We review the claims of the demand letter or the suit. Of course, we're going to validate those usability issues through manual testing and come up with data to support compliance in either direction. And that's going to allow counsel to respond with our expert report and enter into the workflow of negotiations and settlement. And also, just to echo back on what Shep was saying, engage counsel early, get in there as quick as possible. In terms of our world, a compliance checklist is going to look something like this. This is best practices. I've listed 95% conformance with WCAG 2.0 AA. And the distinction here is the platform. Sure, you know, courts are, we've seen demand letters and suits asking for 2.0 AA as a remediation, and we've seen 2.1 at the same time. I think that's going to come out of the expertise of your counsel and your accessibility team to help you work towards that. But 2.0 AA is, you know, a conformance standard that is it's going to get you to a very, very high success rate of accessibility. If you can shoot for 2.1, even better. On the horizon, we are already seeing the development of the 2.2 standards. They're not out yet and they won't be out for a while, but there is, of course, an evolution towards expanding these guidelines over time as well. Regardless of the success criteria and the conformance level, it's just important to make sure your digital platform is accessible to people with disabilities using assistive technologies. Whether it's on mobile or desktop, screen readers and keyboards need to be able to work as a modal without a traditional visible or physical input. So for example, our accessibility team will switch off the monitors, put the mouse away and simply just use a screen reader and a keyboard to navigate a site as if a blind user is trying to, you know, have an auditory user experience. Ongoing annual third-party audits are hypercritical as well. We have some clients that are doing, you know, quarterly reviews, quarterly audits because they have a lot of dynamic content. Regardless, ongoing site scans and monitoring are very important. Another basically a best practice of the site scans and monitoring and third-party audits is to continue to allow us to build a compliance trail. As we are monitoring and auditing and time date stamping the work, we're simply building, you know, a compliance vault, if you will, of your site being in WCAG conformance. So if there ever is the unfortunate situation of being served, we can, as an expert accessibility consultancy organization, bring out our work and show that you've remained in compliance over that period of time. Another important consideration is just remediation oversight, whether it's your creative team or your development team, having access to, you know, the testers and the consultants over time to help you make sure you're doing things correct is very important. That ties nicely into your written policies for the organization, of course. I spoke about this earlier as well, but just having a method for your users, your accessibility community to provide feedback is a guaranteed way to make sure that your site is meeting the needs of the accommodations that are important to your users and your demographic. So just want to thank you for letting me participate today. Happy to provide a complimentary site scan if anybody's interested. We'll provide transcripts after this presentation as well. and I'll kick this back over to David and go into a Q&A session. Thank you.
Had myself muted there. Apologies to everybody. Darren, thanks very much for the presentation, and Shep, thank you as well. A lot of information, a lot to digest. As both Shep and Darren mentioned, materials will be available to you after the seminar. We don't expect you to drink out of a fire hose during this hour, but just kind of present it to you as topical and try to get your organizations thinking about these issues. We do have a couple minutes left, and before I get to a couple of the audience questions, Darren, I had one question for you. You had laid out in one of your slides the various 2.0 criteria that virtual meeting organizers should pay attention to in terms of compliance. And I thought you had mentioned, is it AAA or 2.1 that focuses more on mobile accessibility? And if an event organizer is trying to have their event work on a mobile device, so people can participate in a virtual conference on their cell phone, for example, are there other implications in WCAG that the organizer needs to pay attention to in trying to meet that compliance requirement?
Yeah, there certainly are. So this is where the conversation around understanding your platform and how your demographic is consuming your content. Yes, if you're going to the mobile platform, 2.1 becomes more applicable. I was just trying to highlight that the WCAG criteria for captions, audio, video, sign language, these kind of things fall under the 2.0 success criteria. But if you move to the mobile platform more specifically, that's where 2.1 is more impactful, especially when it comes to motor skills and low vision, because your screen essentially is reduced, right? You have a smaller device, touch point areas are smaller, the swipe actions have to be different, but 2.1 is very much more applicable to the mobile platform. That is correct.
Okay, great. One question we got is, what should an organizer budget for review of a remote events website and platform to make sure that we're meeting our accessibility requirements? So we can unpack that a little bit. Darren, maybe I'll kick it over to you for this one. Obviously, there's vendor selection, picking your platform, maybe other factors that ought to be considered in trying to come up with what your spend is going to be on that as an organizer, rather than trying to put a dollar amount out there today. But maybe you can talk about some of the factors.
Yeah, so obviously a tough question to answer in terms of numbers, but here are the considerations. I mean, obviously platform from a technology point of view is the big distinguishing factor. You could have two sites that have equal front-end capabilities in terms of the registration process, taking payments online, how it presents, the content dynamically, and yet the back end are two completely different technologies, and it could double your cost essentially, because the one platform is written in a language that is more proprietary, obscure, and harder to remediate. So the way to answer this question is a quick technology audit. We look at the platform, we look at the code. An important consideration are the plugins or third-party applications that are feeding the platform. Typically, we find that these builds are not in isolation. They tend to rely on and leverage the functionality of a lot of third-party apps. So there's a break point there. We can remediate this platform to the platform's capabilities and framework, but there's a dependency on third-party plugins which may or may not be compliant, or may not even have a roadmap for compliance built into them. So sometimes it's can be affordable to remediate the platform, but expensive to rebuild the plugins. So that becomes a bit of a way in terms of which direction you want to go. Not really able to give you specific costs around remediation, but we do see that some smaller platforms are, in this, could be several $1,000s of auditing. These don't have to be, double-digit numbers all the way up in the 20s and 30s for sure. Mm-hmm. We have some smaller projects that are in the 5 to 10 range of auditing, and some medium-sized projects on the 10 to 25 range. It should not, for small businesses, obviously. And of course, another consideration is the front end, the design. Just the complexity of the design and how much accessibility was taken into consideration when it was built. Sometimes, unfortunately, a redesign or a rebuild can end up being more affordable than an actual remediation. That'll come out of the audit, though.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is understand what the compliance requirements are for a particular meeting or event, then go in and audit the platform that you have to see what levels of compliance need to be addressed, and then you can build a remediation plan around that.
That's right. And the estimates these are no cost estimates. It's just we go in there to figure out and help you figure out the costs and the next steps for remediation. So it's good to start there.
Right. All right. I think we have time for one more. And again, apologies to anybody who sent in a question that we didn't get to, but let me just toss this one out here. Is there any need, or is it otherwise a good idea for an organizer to poll pre-registered attendees in order to determine what specific accommodations can or should be provided for the remote event or meeting? So Darren, again, over to you. I think you touched on this during your presentation regarding polling, pre-event polling to determine specific accommodations. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I can. Sorry, I was just reading a quick Q&A from Tracy Lancaster. I was hoping we had time to answer that as well. But in terms of polling, yes. So polling is super, super important. Basically, your audience is telling you exactly what they need, so you can essentially, drill down to the accommodations that are going to be absolutely necessary for the event. So you've got your conformance standard, you've got your success criteria. You're going to shoot for, let's say, 2.0 AA or 2.1. So you have to be in a framework of these accessibility guidelines. But the polling is going to give you some more specific and some more granularity around what exactly needs to be put into place. And that's going to feed into the capabilities or the limitations of the platform. And very quickly, you're going to get to an inflection point where the platform can either handle these accommodations or not. And that's going to allow you to determine budget, timeframe, capabilities, team, expertise, resources, and roadmap to getting these accommodations built into the platform. So it's hypercritical. And as I mentioned before, the feedback on the back end of the event is as important to see how you did and to see what you can improve on.
Okay. I think we can get one more in here. I'll just read it. As an organizer that is now faced with selecting a platform to produce various sized and scoped virtual events, how can we check whether the platform under consideration is actually accessible before we sign up with a given vendor? Do we simply take the company's word for it? So this, of course, gets into due diligence around a technology solution selection. So you've audited these companies, you've audited their solutions, you've reviewed performance and compliance criteria. So maybe you can give a little advice to people who are just embarking on this selection process.
Yeah, so we work with several e-learning, long distance learning event platforms, and we have helped several of them create these VPAT, these voluntary product accessibility template documents. These VPATs essentially evaluate how accessible a particular product is. I won't get into the Section 508 standards, but it's essentially the document that outlines the accommodation, how accessible the site is based on a feature and a use case of accessibility for that feature. So ask the platform provider. So I believe this was to Tracy, right?
Yeah.
To Tracy, ask the platform provider if they have a VPAT. If not, ask them if they would be prepared to get one. We can certainly help that organization draft that document, or just find someone who can bring an accessibility auditing testing capability to the table. Let your vendor know that you want to test their platform, and either you pay for it yourself or have them pay for it to test and validate that it actually is compliant, using a screen reader and a keyboard and coming at it from a pure accessibility perspective. Even from a blind user perspective, will answer that question immediately. So working with a vendor can certainly help.
I think also just, ask them to guarantee it in the contract, what you want. I mean, it's one thing for them to say it, that the question sort of imply, well, should I just trust them? No, you shouldn't just trust them. I mean, one way is what Darren said, testing, but also make them put their money where their mouth is and guarantee it. So at least you've got some recourse if there's a problem and you run into difficulties on the back end.
Yeah, I think a good takeaway from this question, Tracy, thanks for that, is, get professionals who have experience in these matters involved early on. Not just if you get a demand letter about compliance, but if you're going into a solution selection process, contracting process, get good advice and counsel on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to just about do it for our time today. We're coming up on the hour. I hope you all found our presentation helpful and relevant, and that it got you thinking about how to make your remote events and meetings more accessible and inclusive. As I think we've shown by making a commitment to this goal, not only can you help your organization avoid legal entanglements, but it will also create and burnish a reputation that can add value to your brand and build better customer relationships. I'd like to again thank my panelists, Shep Davidson, Burns Levinson, and Darren Harpaz from Zenith Group for their time and their insights. I'd also like to thank my friends at Abilities Expo, a longtime client of our business media group, for their insights and guidance from the Alley community around virtual and remote events. And finally, a special shout out to the Burns Marketing Department for all of the behind the scenes help in pulling off today's webinar. And thanks to all of you for your time and attention today. We really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.